Sometimes getting it wrong can be so right. At least, that's what these filmmakers thought. While bloopers often make a funny gag reel at the end of a movie, sometimes they're just so perfect that they make their way into the movie itself. Bloopers can lead to amazing moments of improvisation, or just be so damn coincidental that they work so well that you didn't even realize they were a blooper in the first place. Whether it be a strangely metaphorical outtake, a brilliant one-liner, or a moment of sheer agony, sometimes when the bloopers hit the editing room, they're just too good to cut. In this video, we will take a look at some of the best bloopers in movie history and how these gaffes turned into some of our favorite scenes.
Why do I smell baby oil?
The Rock is well known for his brilliant insults and one-liners, with the famous behind-the-scenes candy-ass feud with Vin Diesel being an example of this. But it wasn't just when the cameras weren't rolling with the Fast and the Furious where The Rock honed his razor-sharp comebacks. While Tyrese and Ludacris are known for bringing the comic relief to the franchise, in one scene, The Rock left them both stunned. When The Rock's character Hobbs enters a scene, Roman, played by Tyrese, quips to Jordana Brewster's Mia,
Hey, Mia, you better hide your baby oil.
which probably refers to the ridiculous amount of baby oil The Rock and Vin Diesel reportedly used during their first fight scene in the franchise. However, The Rock went off script and came back with the priceless line,
I'm just playing.
You better hide that big-ass forehead.
I was just joking. Whatever.
Both Ludacris and Tyrese were surprised by the line, causing Ludacris to break character and do an actual spit take while Tyrese stood there stunned. The filmmakers liked the reaction so much they kept it in, cementing it as one of the best comebacks in movie history. Oh, it's a classic. After the events of both Infinity War and Endgame, we know the true power of the Infinity Stones and the ultimate destruction they can cause. So if you ever get your hands on one, it's probably best you be careful with it. But someone didn't tell Peter Quill that in Guardians of the Galaxy, as when he goes to hand the orb containing the Power Stone to the Collector, he drops it on the floor and then pops back up as if nothing happened. Yeah, not a smart move. What makes it funnier is that it was a total accident.
Chris is about to drop the orb. This is totally real. This was not planned. Chris actually dropped the orb. And then he, of course, recovered it with humor, but he actually dropped the orb. That was not planned at all.
The gaffe felt perfect for the scene and felt totally in character for Star-Lord, and so unsurprisingly, they decided to keep it in the final cut. The Lord of the Rings trilogy is known for its amazing cinematography and use of foreboding to set the tone. As an example of this in Two Towers, as war with Isengard looms, Éowyn stares off into the distance, pondering the future as the camera pulls wide to show off a cinematic view of the barren landscape in front of her. But filming outside on location often comes with its own set of problems, as we see one of the flagpoles flap viciously in the wind until eventually the flag rips off the pole entirely and flies away. This was completely by accident, but Jackson loved the shot and the metaphor it served and decided to keep it in. Two Towers also gave us another great blooper turned iconic scene. When Aragorn finds the remains of the Uruk-hai and believes that Merry and Pippin are dead, actor Viggo Mortensen turns and kicks a helmet in frustration and falls to his knees. This was actually a moment of improvisation by Mortensen, but he kicked the helmet so hard that he ended up breaking his toes and screaming in pain, making that cry of agony very real. Talk about method acting. The police lineup in The Usual Suspects is one of the most iconic scenes, and one of the ones that lives on in our memory. While this scene feels like it should be serious and full of tension, we see the characters barely able to contain their laughter and goofing around. But this wasn't in the script, and nor was it the work of director Bryan Singer. It was, in fact, apparently the work of a heavy lunch. The cast had just returned from lunch and were already very giggly and tired after a long day of filming. So when actor Benicio del Toro kept farting due to his meal, the cast couldn't keep it together. Apparently, Del Toro farted through 12 takes, only increasing the laughter of the cast. Singer was apparently furious with the intention of this being a serious scene, but during editing saw the funny side and decided to keep this famous scene in all its gassy glory. Zoolander is known as one of the best comedies of the early 2000s, with plenty of gags and comedic moments in amongst the models with perfectly structured cheekbones. Centered around Ben Stiller's unintellectual male model Derek Zoolander, the movie has plenty of absurd moments, and one of the best of them came from a blooper.
So why male models?
After David Duchovny's character J.P. Pruitt gives a lengthy monologue about how male models are orchestrated to perform high-profile assassinations, going into depth why they are a perfect fit, Zoolander instantly gives his response,
But why male models?
which was the question he had already asked. While this might seem like a scripted moment to show Zoolander's stupidity and lack of comprehension, in actuality, Stiller had just forgotten the next line, so he decided to repeat his first line instead. Duchovny, who wasn't expecting this response and looked taken aback, stayed in character, improvising his next lines, and the end result is so funny that it stayed in the final cut.
You serious? I just told you that a moment ago.
While we may know Indy is the Raider of the Lost Ark, we forget that this title should also go to his French counterpart René Belloc. While Belloc is the perfect antagonist for Indy, eagle-eyed fans remember him for one strange scene. In the scene where Indy ambushes Belloc and the Nazis, as Belloc talks to Indy, a fly lands on the actor Paul Freeman's face. The fly then goes into his mouth and flies out, but due to the choppy filming, we don't see the fly leave, and it looks like Freeman ate the fly. While Freeman felt the fly, he thought no one noticed, but they did, and now it goes down in history as a funny, albeit weird blooper. However, that wasn't the only big blooper in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Big Indy fans will know this one. Initially, the gun versus sword fight scene in Raiders was supposed to be a huge fight sequence, but when Ford felt ill during filming, instead of filming the tiring sequence which involved his whip, it was replaced with the genius piece of improv that we all know, pulling out his gun and shooting the sword wheeler. That's why you don't bring a sword to a gunfight. Donald Glover is a man of many talents. Writer, singer, musician, he can do it all. But sometimes even he makes mistakes, with one of his best blunders coming during the filming of The Martian. Glover recounted the funny moments during his appearance on Conan, telling the talk show host that director Ridley Scott only does 3 to 4 takes before moving on, so you have to get it right quickly. This made Glover nervous, but reportedly he nailed his take, spitting into a wastebasket before doing some stage business. But when he went to leave, his nerves got the better of them, and when he got up to walk, he slipped and fell to the ground.
I need more coffee.
Are you all right?
Fine.
Glover stayed in character and ran with the moment, quickly shaking himself off and continuing with the scene. Scott liked the moment so much he kept it in there, giving some comic relief in an otherwise dramatic movie. Quentin Tarantino's 2012 film Django Unchained is known for, among many things, its amazing performances. One of the most captivating performances is that of Leonardo DiCaprio as the villainous Calvin Candy, owner of Candyland, a slave-ran plantation in the Deep South where Django must try and free his wife from. As Candy hosts Django and Dr. King Schultz for dinner, we see the depths of his cruelty and evil nature as he goes on a long racist monologue. But DiCaprio might have got more than he bargained for when he slammed his hand down on the table right onto a glass. While DiCaprio thought it was a prop glass made out of sugar glass, it turned out to be very real, and the glass cut deep into his hand, leaving it seriously lacerated. But Tarantino, sensing a great moment and not afraid of showing blood in his movies, excitedly kept the camera rolling. DiCaprio didn't break character, barely flinching, and even starts rubbing the real blood on Kerry Washington's face, leaving her genuinely disgusted. Django Unchained wasn't the only movie involving a huge blooper for Quentin Tarantino, with his 2015 movie Hateful Eight having a less bloody but far more expensive blooper in the final cut. Throughout the movie, Kurt Russell's John Ruth and Jennifer Jason Leigh's Daisy Domergue are constantly at each other's throats, and one constantly trying to antagonize the other. In one scene, Domergue starts playing a guitar to irritate Ruth, and in a fit of rage, Ruth grabs the guitar and smashes it to pieces. The issue is that the guitar in question was an almost priceless 19th century Martin guitar on loan from the Martin guitar and was a rare artifact, so the initial plan was to quickly cut and switch to a prop guitar. However, Russell obviously didn't get the memo and instead ended up smashing a $40,000 guitar to smithereens. Lee's shocked reaction is real, and Russell was left feeling guilty for his part in destroying this piece of history. Unsurprisingly, the Martin Museum vowed never to loan any of their artifacts to a film production again. Villeneuve's Blade Runner 2049, the long-awaited sequel to the 80s movie, is known for its amazing cinematography, unique story, and by bringing back Harrison Ford's famous character Deckard. Excitement mounts when we see Ryan Gosling's Agent K meeting Deckard for the first time, as it culminates into a punching match with the blows looking all too real. That might be because one of them was real, as the two characters traded blows with 79 out of 80 punches missing like they were supposed to. Harrison Ford got carried away with one and landed his fist right on Baby Goose's face. And you can see that in the final cut. In a blink and you'll miss it moment, you can see the exact moment where Ford makes contact and his genuine shocked reaction. He later said that was the face of "oh shit, I'm in deep doo-doo," which summarizes it perfectly. Thankfully, Gosling took it like a champ and the two laugh about it to this day. Although it probably wasn't very funny at the time. I mean, it is his moneymaker. He's a Hollywood pretty boy, Ford. You gotta be more careful.
What questions?
Marvel movies have it all. Massive set pieces, believable special effects, larger-than-life characters, and big mistakes that stick out like sore thumbs. Yeah, you heard that right. The MCU films are the closest things we have to superhero heaven. But they're not perfect. Still, it's those bloopers that prove just how funny the people behind the scenes putting these films together can be. And hey, if they're having fun behind the camera, then that's all the more reason why we have so much fun watching these movies in the theater. So, join Screen Rant as we go through these 25 unbelievable Marvel movie bloopers. 1. First up, it's Captain America Civil War. During the airport fight, the flight-friendly superheroes engage in their own scuffle in the skies. Rhodey's suit gets deactivated by a shot from Vision, a shot intended for the Falcon. It sends him free-falling into the ground. Anthony Mackie as Falcon flies over to apologize, but it took him a couple tries to stick the landing. During one take, he fell and landed face first, causing Robert Downey Jr. to break, and making us break too. Hey, something had to lighten the mood after all this infighting. 2. Unlike Velociraptors, Captain America can't seem to open doors. He may have the mightiest shield around, but in Captain America the Winter Soldier, Chris Evans spent multiple takes trying to bust through a lock on a door. The edge of his shield wasn't cutting it, however. During these takes, Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow stands behind him, unable to provide much assistance either. Apparently, they make locks stronger than vibranium. While they were eventually able to break through the door thanks to movie magic, this scene is a lesson that sometimes you should pack a pair of bolt cutters. 3. Captain America Civil War's airport battle is one of the most well-realized superhero movie fights ever. Sadly, they couldn't correctly replicate it for Spider-Man Homecoming. At the beginning of Homecoming, Peter Parker's vlog shows a recap of the battle. When Peter shows up in the footage, he says, "Hey everyone." Yet in Civil War, Tony Stark greets Peter first, saying, "Nice job, kid," before Peter responds. Thanks. With all of Marvel's meticulous planning, you'd think they'd have caught this mistake, but maybe Peter Parker edited the vlog before he posted it. 4. The Pym particles from Ant-Man are explained not once, but twice, as having the ability to shrink space between atoms. That's all well and good, and makes all the shrinking and enlarging that happens throughout Ant-Man seem believable. But if Ant-Man's tech isn't actually shrinking the atoms themselves, then we believe that they can't possibly be changing the mass of the items, no matter how small or large they become. Which means that Ant-Man couldn't have carried that tank in his pocket unless he wanted to rip a hole through his pants. 5. Much of the Guardians of the Galaxy's success is due to its soundtrack. One big mistake, though, is the cassette tape on which Star-Lord's awesome mix plays. His mom may have passed away in 1988, but the mixtapes she's given him are Type 2 CDing 2 TDK cassette tapes. That may not ring a bell to any of you non-tape experts out there, but this particular brand of cassette was not produced and sold until 1993. Let's assume this happened because someone time-traveled and made a copy. 6. Black Panther's Danai Gurira has achieved much success as of late, thanks to her MCU role as Okoye and her other famous role as Michonne in The Walking Dead. But those two big titles on her resume weren't enough to keep her from being upstaged by a goat. During filming, Black Panther's sidekick was given her own sidekick when a goat wandered into the frame. It's hard to control a goat, but hey, maybe we'll all look back in 20 years and say, wow, can you believe that world-famous goat got his start in Black Panther? Who'da thunk it? 7. In the first Avengers film, the Battle of New York caused billions of dollars worth of damage to the Big Apple and many lives were sadly lost. So a dent in a car shouldn't have that much of an impact in the grand scheme of things. At one point during the battle, Thor crouches behind this dented, overturned silver car. In the next shot, though, the car's dents are gone, and while it's still overturned, there doesn't appear to be any issues. The special effects team likely failed to remember to add damage to the car in subsequent shots. 8. Kobe Smulders has comedy chops, as we know from her stint as a lead on How I Met Your Mother. Yet her role as Agent Maria Hill doesn't often allow her to go for laughs. Except in this deleted moment where Maria Hill can't handle Agent Phil Coulson's death. With a "no" on par with Darth Vader's at the end of Revenge of the Sith, Smulders really goes for it here, threatening to get the Avengers to, avenge his death. And quick fun fact, this blooper was used for loading screens in the LEGO Marvel Avengers video game. 9. In another moment where the actors just can't seem to keep it together while the world falls apart around them, Benedict Wong couldn't seem to match his fellow actors' sense of gravitas. In Avengers Infinity War, when Stark, Banner, Doctor Strange, and Wong meet in the Sorcerer Supreme's headquarters as Thanos hovers over New York, the assembled heroes look out past the camera, sensing the full weight of the situation. But Wong just can't seem to keep a straight face. It's nice to see that even in the face of doom, some people maintain their sense of humor. 10. Gwyneth Paltrow's Pepper Potts can do anything. Not only is she Tony Stark's ever-supportive partner, she's also a Type A time management wizard. But is she a literal wizard as well? In the first Iron Man, Pepper is seen wearing a hands-free earpiece in her ear. Then in the following shot, there's no earpiece to be seen. Did she slip it away lightning fast? Did it fall out of her ear without her noticing? Or did Stark Industries create the kind of hands-free device that stores itself away when it's not needed? Our money's on that last option. 11. In a moment that was actually played for laughs, Captain America's educational school film in Spider-Man Homecoming was one of the highlights of the movie. However, while filming this scene, Chris Evans couldn't take the situation for what it was and broke character. For some reason, Evans was unable to keep a straight face when saying to school children, the one thing that will give them an edge is a hot lunch. We have to admit there's something funny about the words hot lunch. At least it's funnier than a cold lunch. 12. Much like how in the Star Wars films, characters pronounce words differently. For instance, Lando says Han like hand instead of Han like Hans Gruber. Anyway, there was a time during the filming of Black Panther that no one could get a consensus on how to pronounce Wakanda. Both Martin Freeman and Danai Gurira in particular had some trouble saying the country's name right, which is especially embarrassing since they should both know how to say the name of the place they spend so much time inside. 13. Iron Man 3 is one of the more divisive big-budget films in the MCU, but hey, it took risks. One thing they might not have spent their money on, however, is presidential research. When a bullet ricochets off the Iron Patriot suit inside Air Force One, it blows through a window, which seems totally believable, except for the fact Air Force One's windows are built to be bulletproof. Perhaps the Iron Patriot's armor is so powerful the bullet's speed picks up after it hits it, sending it at a strong enough velocity to blow through that window. 14. Iron Man 3 got heat from some fans for certain storytelling decisions, specifically their Mandarin fake-out. But this particular blooper with Trevor Slattery, aka Not the Mandarin, is too good to ignore. Rhodes asks Slattery to do several different accents, and actor Ben Kingsley is given an excuse to stretch his vocal muscles. While he doesn't know where South Central is,
South Central, Tyler?
Where's that?
we get to see Kingsley do an Irish, Jamaican, French, and Spanish accent before they ask him to do British, which turns the conversation on its head.
Well, I am British.
15. In the first Iron Man, Captain America's shield makes a cameo appearance. At the time, it seemed like a nice little Easter egg, and it somehow didn't give away the twist of the post-credits scene, telling us Iron Man is the start of a shared universe. The inconsistency here is that during this time, Captain America is still buried under ice, frozen in the same spot since the end of Captain America: The First Avenger, made after Iron Man. Maybe this was just a prototype shield. 16. Captain America: The First Avenger had an even bigger problem with consistency, and that stems from its use, or rather misuse, of certain flags. First, when the British flag is shown hanging outside a building, it's hanging upside down. Elsewhere, at the World Expo, the flag of the Bahamas can be seen. Unfortunately, this particular flag wasn't created until the 1970s, and the movie takes place in the 40s. We love the movie, but it doesn't have the same keen eye as, say, Raiders of the Lost Ark. 17. For a guy who can transform into a nearly indestructible green beast, Bruce Banner doesn't always have the stomach for violence. At least in his normal form. That's best shown in this cut blooper from the first Avengers. While filming a shot during the Battle of New York, where the Avengers look dramatically toward the foes ahead of them, Ruffalo just goes, "Dudes, you're on your own," and bolts down the street. Hey, even the Hulk has to listen to his fight-or-flight instincts. 18. Despite the many small mistakes, the first Avengers is still a milestone in blockbuster filmmaking. It's just a shame they let this blooper go by too. Toward the end of the movie, Captain America rides off on a motorcycle and a tight shot shows him smiling as he goes. No matter how fast that motorcycle may be moving, however, his hair stays in place. Either he's got a whole bunch of pomade holding it together, or he was just filming the scene in front of a green screen. 19. We live in an era where minor costume mistakes and continuity issues can be fixed with a quick computer touch-up, which makes these slip-ups all the more surprising. Take this one from Iron Man 2. Ivan Vanko lies on the ground and a trail of blood dribbles from his mouth. In the next shot, however, the blood trail disappears from Ivan's mouth. Did he swallow it? Did the cops surrounding him wipe the side of his mouth? What's the deal here? 20. As the voice of Jarvis, actor Paul Bettany must have gotten a lot of practice saying verbose lines and complex technical phrases. As Vision, though, Bettany has to say these lines in a tight costume, on set, with his fellow actors. And sometimes that makes it more difficult to keep from getting tongue-tied. To see Vision, a cool, calm, and composed character, lose his ability to speak clearly changes the way we view the character.
Manipulates molecular polarity.
At least for the time being. 21. In Captain America the Winter Soldier, you'd think that the coordinates of the Triskelion would be managed perfectly. Unfortunately, that's not the case. When the Triskelion is introduced on screen with fancy little text denoting the name of the structure and its location, the coordinates are listed incorrectly. Both the latitude and longitude for S.H.I.E.L.D.'s headquarters are given as north and south. The longitude should be east and west. Unless that was just S.H.I.E.L.D. trying to keep its location secret even to the on-screen viewers. 22. In Ant-Man, the hero does battle with Darren Cross. And towards the end of the final fight, Cross pulls a Glock to Ant-Man's head. So, Ant-Man summons ants to overtake the gun in Cross's hand. The ants block the gun's hammer, and Ant-Man is able to take the upper hand. The only problem is, Cross has been holding a Glock, which doesn't have a hammer accessible on the outside of the gun. In fact, the close-up on the gun's hammer is the only shot in this sequence where the hammer's visible. Whoops. 23. Tim and Eric are like walking bloopers in their own right. They embrace comedy that's quote-unquote terrible on purpose, and they do comedy in a way that takes certain people off guard. So, when Tim Heidecker served as a tour guide in Ant-Man and the Wasp, it's probably right up much of the audience's alley, and perfect for a blooper reel. When the situation around Heidecker's character gets out of control, the actor rolls with it and riffs so hard we'd want to be stuck on a 3-hour tour with this guy in any city.
Goobleyer.
24. Speaking of riffing, if you cast Jeff Goldblum in a movie, you can be dang sure the guy's gonna riff to his heart's content. And in a movie like Thor Ragnarok, which is just full of improv and riffing, Jeff Goldblum goes wild. Sadly, much of his lines are on the cutting room floor, but that means there's more material on the blooper reel, including some on-point ear wiggling and some beatboxing with Tom Hiddleston. 25. This one's an oldie, and a pre-MCU era blooper to boot. But it's still topical because Spider-Man's always a topic of conversation. He may not be in tip-top Tom Holland shape, but Tobey Maguire's awesome spider-like reflexes weren't yet honed enough to save his bedroom lamp from breaking during the scene when he first tries out his new web-slinging abilities. However, when we return to Peter Parker's room, the lamp's still there, undamaged. Either this is a blooper or Aunt May's crafting skills saved the day.
Welcome back, Screen Ranters. Bloopers in film are common. Most of the time, those mistakes end up on the cutting room floor. However, sometimes they can be little clips of gold. When that happens, they might just end up in the finished cinematic product. Some actors have to deal with unforeseen actions happening around them. Sir Ian McKellen, Chris Pratt, Leonardo DiCaprio, and many more actors pop up today, so let's get cracking.
I present to you
A center for ants!
The Power Stone is a pretty powerful pearl, getting our alliteration in early, as seen by the Celestial, Isan the Searcher, in the Collector's video. A whole planet was wiped out with the tap of a massive Power Stone infused staff. Strange how that capability is never seen again when the Power Stone comes out to play. So with that sort of destructive ability, it's only natural that one would have to be careful when handling the gem. We see with Karina in the same scene how strong the stone is. Star-Lord wasn't exactly careful when handing the orb containing the stone to the Collector. That could have been so bad. As it turns out, that wasn't meant to happen. Chris Pratt just fumbled the ball when offering it out. He grabbed it from the floor quickly and offered it once again, keeping the same deadpan expression across his face. Maybe the next time the Guardians have a planet-destroying weapon, Gamora should hold on to it. Quentin Tarantino always manages to attract great actors to his filmic projects, one of which was Leonardo DiCaprio for Django Unchained. In the film, he played the villainous Calvin Candy.
Roscoe, a beer for the man with the beard, and I will have a Polynesian pearl diver. Do not spare the rum.
So Jamie Foxx and Christopher Waltz's characters are at the Candy Ranch to find Django's wife. As Candy is fed up with the two lying about their intentions, he slams his hand on the table. However, DiCaprio actually smacked his hand into a piece of glass. DiCaprio doesn't stop as a wound forms on his hand. He keeps going with the scene as thick, red liquid oozes from the slice. He even pulls a shard of glass out of his hand and continues. Tarantino didn't yell cut. Instead, he saw that DiCaprio was going on, so they must keep shooting. Tarantino loved the gory effect so much that he even made a fake variation for a moment later in the scene. Yep. When Candy smears Broomhilda's face in claret, it's not the real deal, thankfully. That one blooper led to one of the highlights of Leo's great career. The 40-year-old virgin turned Steve Carell from funny side actor to funny main character in Hollywood. One of the most famous scenes in the film involves a lot of hair and pain. In this scene, Carell's character is turning his hairy torso into a smooth torso, with the waxing, lots of waxing, and some yelling and cursing by Carell. This is a blooper for a couple of reasons. Firstly, Carell didn't realize how sore waxing would be, so his reaction is pretty close to how he actually felt in those moments. Secondly, it was due to the person waxing the folic jungle. In the audition, Mickey Mia had stated that she knew how to wax. Nope. Actor Romany Malco had to genuinely leave the scene. He was that disturbed by what was happening before his eyes. The identity of Kaiser Soze in The Usual Suspects is an open secret in cinema. However, it was a massive twist in 1995. Now it gets spoiled at any opportunity.
Francine's throwing a surprise party for you next Friday at 7 p.m. She got you the movie The Usual Suspects. Kevin Spacey is Kaiser Soze. Takes all the names from the things in the room.
Ah, whoops. Should have said spoiler warning earlier. Oh well. Moving on swiftly from the almost 25-year-old film twist. In The Usual Suspects, one of the best-known scenes is the identity parade. As each character is forced to read a couple of adult language-filled sentences, McManus, played by Stephen Baldwin, delivers the line in an over-the-top fashion. It's easy to think it was due to McManus's comedic performance. However, the actor of Fenster, Benicio del Toro, was the person responsible. He had been potently trouser coughing during the scene. The relentless farting made the actors giggle, but apparently not the director, Bryan Singer. However, he changed his tune and went with this iconic version instead. Here are some Lord of the Rings facts. Gandalf is a human-sized wizard. Bilbo Baggins is a hobbit. Hobbits are a much smaller species compared to humans. They also have hairy feet that makes shoes pointless for them. They also have many meals throughout the day.
We do not stop till nightfall.
What about breakfast?
We've already had it.
We've had one, yes. What about second breakfast?
Anyway, Gandalf found out the hard way just how large the size difference between the two species is. In the first film, The Fellowship of the Ring, Gandalf goes to his old chum Bilbo. Bilbo's house is literally tiny for Gandalf. As the massive wizard tries to wander within the little hovel, he knocks against a dangling chandelier. Immediately afterwards, Gandalf turns and conks his noggin against a wooden ceiling beam. The beam knock wasn't actually meant to happen. The reaction of actor Sir Ian McKellen is genuine. Director Peter Jackson liked the touch of humor that moment provided. Tangent time. If you heart Screen Rant content, then boy howdy do we have something for you. If you subscribe to us and click that little bell, you'll be notified every time we release a new video. Outstanding. If you're on mobile, make sure notifications are on via your app settings. It's a phrase that's been parodied many times in cinema. It was even the basis for the cousin Nicky character in Rick and Morty. Mostly it's uttered by New Yorkers. The phrase "I'm walking here" originally came from 1969's Midnight Cowboy. However, it wasn't a sentence that was meant to be spoken. During the shooting of the multi-Oscar winning film, the production didn't have a permit to close the street in New York for a scene. So rather than wait and get the correct paperwork, they decided to do some guerrilla tactics. The cameras were hidden as they shot this scene with real people surrounding the cast. During the scene, Dustin Hoffman and Jon Voight's characters walk down the street in the Big Apple as they chat to each other. Just as they cross a road, a taxi almost hits the Oscar-winning actors. Still in character, Hoffman slaps the hood of the taxi and yells,
I'm walking here! I'm walking here!
As such, the director, John Schlesinger, had to keep the moment in. Hoffman, by accident, created one of the most quotable lines in the moving pictures industry. In order to play her Oscar-nominated role as Daisy Domergue, Jennifer Jason Leigh had to learn to play the guitar. In order to nail the time period that The Hateful Eight was set in, she was given a guitar from 1860. It was an antique Martin that was loaned from the Martin Guitar Museum. In this particular scene, Leigh would have the guitar snatched from her by John Ruth, who was played by Kurt Russell. He would then go to smash the guitar, only for Tarantino to yell "cut." The guitar would then be replaced by a dummy one. Russell would then smash the instrument to bits. Only it didn't go down that way. Instead, Russell smashed the antique. Yep, a guitar that was over 150 years old, gone. So Leigh's reaction is, once again, genuine. She even looks to the crew just before they cut to another angle. Leigh had plans to buy that guitar due to its sentimental value. Russell was apparently distraught for breaking the Martin. Neither he nor Tarantino realized that was the genuine article. Will make us snort with laughter. Win-win. If any of these entries surprised you even slightly, then share and like it. You never know, we may do a sequel, or not, who knows. That's the fun in a mystery. Cheers for joining us today. Later, Tater.